guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is all about sorting out your bad posture, and posture is something in terms of like everyday life. You need good posture, because if you have bad posture now, maybe like you're my age or thereabouts, it is going to really affect you in a couple of years time, especially when you are a little bit older. But I also understand how difficult it is to maintain good posture, whether you're sat now like hunched over a desk, whether you have a anterior pelvic tilt. I'm going to go through all that with you. They are very common, so I don't want you to think that you're on your own if you have bad posture, or you do want to fix your posture a little bit. I'm going to help you out today with a few tips, but I'm also just going to go through kind of like the common bad posture things that you see nowadays that I want you to notice that you do that you do if you do it. So first things first, when we are sat at a desk, let's have a look what actually happens to our posture. When we're sat down for, I don't know, if you have a desk job or work in office or whatever, and you're sat down for 5 to 6 plus hours a day without really moving, except like going out for lunch and things like that. Basically, you have a pretty sedentary job. Your hip flexors actually go to the position of 90 degrees. So they're in this position when you are sat in a chair. And because you're in this position for such a long period of time, this is where adaptive shortening will occur. And if you do spend a long time sitting, you might develop some imbalances within your muscles. And the sitting position itself does shorten the hip flexors and weaken the glutes, just because your hip flexors are tight, so it does affect your glutes, not because you're actually sat on your arse. That doesn't make your glutes weaker, it's because you will have extra tight hip flexors. Generally, whilst we're seated, the pelvis tilts to a posterior pelvic position, and you basically where it tucks under the body, which flattens the lower spine, and then before you know it, you've got that classic rounded desk posture with extreme upper spine flexion. And what I mean by spine flexion is basically just where you're sat like this, which I've just shown you in the video anyway. So you're sat like this for long periods of time throughout the day, and I'm a criminal for it. I do it quite a lot of the time, and I'm trying to be so conscious about it, and I have actually noticed huge differences in terms of like the strain in my neck and my lower back and upper back and things like that as well. Now, if I was to give you a mobile phone, which, wow, this day and age we spend a lot of time like this on our phones, and according to research, it has been found that on average people spend 2 to 4 hours a day with their heads tilted over reading their phones, and this equates to 700 to 14,000 hours a year. So in this position, looking at your phone, it is obviously quite substantial. I'm just going to pop my hair up for this bit just so I can show you the position of your head. So when your head is in a neutral position like mine is here, the average human head weighs 10 to 12 pounds. But then, say for example, you were looking at your mobile phone and your head automatically tilts down. So the forces seen by the neck increase massively, because obviously you've gone from this position to this position, so it obviously puts so much more strain onto the neck. So from that position there where your head is pointing down staring at your phone, the forces can actually increase up to around 40 pounds on your cervical spine. So like I said, the top of your spine, from 10 to 12 pounds looking forward to 40 pounds like this when your head is down. It is crazy. It basically means that your neck and your upper body muscles are doing the job that they shouldn't be doing. Other muscles should be doing that job, and it shouldn't be putting strain onto your neck or your upper body or your cervical spine. If you're one of those people who does feel constant tension in your neck, have a think back and think how often you spend like doing this, like staring at your phone, whether like you're sat down doing it, whether you're sat in a chair, whether you're at work. Just have a little playback in your head now and think about how many hours a day you spend like that if you do have a bad neck. Okay, now try this. Sit upright and tilt your head only to look down at your mobile phone whilst maintaining an upright posture, and then do it as you normally would, and most of you will slump through your abs, forcing you into lumbar kyphosis. Basically, this is just a fancy way of saying you are hunched over. So they're the two things, and obviously what I would like you to do, and I'm going to go through tips at the end, is to sit more upright, lift your phone up a little bit, and only tilt your head slightly. So instead of doing this with your neck, you're just tilting your head and more so like tilting your gaze down to look at your phone rather than your neck suddenly becoming 40 pounds in weight. Next, we are going to talk about the pelvis, and this is my favourite postural deviance to talk about because this is where we're going to touch on anterior pelvic tilt. So your pelvis moves back and forth from two positions, and this is anterior pelvic tilt through neutral into a posterior pelvic tilt. An anterior pelvic tilt is where there's an exaggeration of the natural lumbar curvature, which is the S shape of the spine. Basically, you're creating that kind of duck arch shape, which I've just shown you on the video. And then a posterior pelvic tilt is a reduction in the natural lumbar curvature, basically tucking the pelvis under. And a posterior pelvic tilt, like naturally stood there, is nowhere near as common as people standing in an anterior pelvic tilt position, because quite naturally, when you're stood there, a lot of people do tend to arch the lower region of their spine, and I am also guilty for this. The most common reason why people have anterior pelvic tilts is because of muscular imbalances, or it's something where maybe you've done sport as a kid. So I was a swimmer, and when we were in the pool, we were literally constantly like that. We didn't get taught to use our core to help kind of oppose the effects of having an anterior pelvic tilt. And people will find who do have an anterior pelvic tilt that they have short and tight quads, erector spinae, which is the muscles down the back of your body, and then also really tight and shortened hip flexors. That's me. This is what I have. Okay, so now I've kind of explained to you like your posture, shoulder position sat at a desk, your neck on your mobile phone, anterior pelvic tilt, posterior pelvic tilt, and things like that. I'm going to run through with you some tips that you can put into your everyday life so you will not have any of these bad posture problems now or in the future. The first thing is setting your shoulders into the correct position, and this is important for both the anterior and posterior position. So all you want to do with your shoulders, rather than obviously being hunched forward, is straight away just retract them back and down. So you don't want to retract them and be like this, where like you're really World Cup double chin, where you're really tense. You want to retract them back and down, but then you're relaxed, so you're actually generally just sat straight upright rather than the shoulders rounding and curling forward. So make a conscious decision to put the shoulders back and down and then relax, and then it will feel uncomfortable, I'm not gonna lie. Sitting in correct posture does feel uncomfortable when it shouldn't, but it does, so obviously really work on that. You want your shoulder blades to be drawn down like I just said to you before. You also want to draw the chest up, and then naturally when you bring your chest up and your shoulders back, you'll have a more natural S shape in your spine, like the natural curvature of the spine, rather than the anterior pelvic tilt where you're literally, I don't know why my hands do this, but you're literally like this, an anterior pelvic tilt. You'll have more of a natural S shape if the chest is up, shoulders are back, and then naturally you'll probably go more into a posterior pelvic tilt. I want you to do exactly what I just said there, sat there in your seat right now. Guys, shoulders back, chest up, and then slightly tuck under your pelvis so you're more in a posterior pelvic tilt. Also, when you do, you naturally feel it more in your core because you actually have to brace your core just to sit upright. Like I said before, this will feel difficult and it will feel hard, but it will get easier. Now, for anterior pelvic tilt, this is kind of one that you have to work on yourself, like subconsciously, to do it. So one of the things that I did start to do, obviously to strengthen my core a little bit more, because obviously if you have a weak lower back, you're more likely just to slump into anterior pelvic tilt. Obviously doing core exercises to strengthen your core, not specifically to show your abs, to actually strengthen the core, is very important. And if you notice yourself that you are stood in the gym and you're just stood there a bit like a lemon, and your back, well, your lower back is in anterior pelvic tilt, subconsciously switch to neutral. So switch to that more posterior neutral position. You might notice it on some certain exercises like barbell hip thrusts, squats. You do not want to be in anterior pelvic tilt. You obviously want to be in neutral for hip thrust, specifically posterior pelvic tilt. So tuck in that pelvis under. I hope that made sense to you and it wasn't too confusing. I didn't want to go down a very sciencey route with that because there's so much research out there into posture. I kind of brought in bits and bobs that didn't sound too complex for you to understand, because you need to understand exactly what I'm telling you, because posture and bad posture is such an important topic, and I hope it made sense to you. Really hope you enjoyed this video. It supports me millions if you subscribe to my channel and like my videos, and I really do appreciate it. I hope you're all having a wonderful evening, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!